Starbucks while he's waiting. All right, that's only. Today I'm going to do a short presentation, since my presentation is on comparative religion, on mixed comparative religion, and a little bit of politics just surrounding a situation that's going on Tuesday. But obviously I'm not going to promote any candidate or anything like that. I just wanted to talk a little bit about a perspective of politics and different religions, or the three major religions. I know in today's society it's become a bit of a taboo to even talk about religion, politics, or race. When I see those three things as something that is very important and very impactful to society around us today. There have been instances of people saying you shouldn't talk about those things, even institutions regulating people saying things on social media about politics, race, and religion. I think those things are something that are greatly important, and we all should speak about them as long as they're respectful and we all trying to come to some common good. When we think about politics, or when we think about religion itself, religion is how we view the world around us, what we view our purpose of in life is. Politics is, according to the dictionary, it's a process of making decisions applying to all members of each group, including different nations and nationalities. So these are things that not only impact ourselves, but impacts other people. So it obviously should be something that is of great importance to us and something that we should discuss. Just recently, I read an article on, I think, Christianity, and they were talking, it was actually on Islam, and they were talking about the separation of church and state in Christianity. And I had read the Bible several times, but I didn't realize that one passage in the Bible that was attributed to Jesus, peace and blessing be upon him, was something used to justify the separation of church and state. Now, if we understand that Moses brought the laws, right, the laws of the Torah, and in the Bible, it's 613 laws. So that is the governance that the Jewish people today use to govern themselves, whether they say this or not. So to some degree, they have what we call Sharia law. They have some way of life that they determine is best for themselves. And this is a law that they say is brought down from God. So ultimately, if they believe in God and they believe that God brought this revelation to them, then they have some degree of politics and religion that is intertwined. The only way it can be undone is if you don't believe in God or you just ignore the laws completely. So to some degree, they have, well, not to some degree, completely. If they believe the words of God, these words are from God, then they have to connect that with how they should live their lives. Now, if Christians believe that Jesus followed those laws, then they too must have some laws that, or some way that they connect politics and religion. Now, Jesus is recorded as saying, not one jot or one tittle should be taken away from the law, which he said he came to not destroy the law, but fulfill it, which means he came to enact it, do what it said to do in those laws, and tell other people to do it. He says, if you teach people not to follow the laws, you will be called least in the kingdom of heaven, but you teach them to do the laws, they will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So one jot or one tittle is one small line or dot in the laws. He said that should not be changed at all, when in fact many people, Paul being the main culprit, told Christians not to follow any of the laws at all. He says if you follow one, you should follow all of them. So basically don't follow any of them. He says the law was nailed to the cross. But also, if you read what Jesus says, he is strengthening some laws and making some laws weaker. For instance, he made the law of divorce, he made it stronger. He said that you can't have a divorce unless it's some sexual immorality is done within the marriage. Otherwise, breaking the bond that you have in marriage is considered a sin, according to him. But in other laws, for instance, the law of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, he weakened that law. He abrogated that law to some degree. But all the other laws, he said, follow every jot and every tittle. But one passage he uses, or Christians use, some of them use to justify the separation of church and state. And that would be when they gave him a coin and they asked him, should he pay taxes? And he said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and render what is God to God's. render what is God's to God. So they look at that in essence to say that this is a separation of church and state. But whenever I read that passage, I looked at it as it was a way for him to get out of a conundrum. See, instances in the Bible, they have the scribes and Pharisees coming to Jesus, and they are trying to get him in some trouble with the law. So they asked him, for instance, they asked him about the lady caught in adultery. They said, should you stone her or what should you do? In the Roman Empire, it wasn't a capital sin to commit adultery. So if he said stone her, then they would have took him to jail, to the Roman courts, for saying he wanted to stone her and kill her. If he said don't stone her, then he will be in aversion to the laws of the commandments. So he said, he who cast the first stone if you haven't committed any sins. So there was a way of him getting out of the conundrum, but he still didn't acknowledge whether he accepted the laws or not. He just found a way to get out of it. In this instance, it's the same thing. He is not saying separation of church and state, but if you say render to God what is God's, everything is God's. So not only was the coin Caesar's, it was God's. So he's still saying there's no separation between church and state. And also, even the idea of him being in the temple, and he whipped the templates, he whipped those people who was taking taxes. Some people see that as an aversion or some perversion, but that is a perversion of the temple, not that he is separating church and state. As I mentioned, he said follow every one of the laws. So to some degree, Christians and Jews, whether they accept it or not, should be having some form of Sharia law, or whatever it is called in their tradition, some way that they should follow that is dealing with politics. And we understand Islam is not just a religion, but it is a way of life that governs our every actions. When we wake up in the morning to when we go to sleep, how we deal with other people, whether they're Muslims or non-Muslims, how we are to act in war in times of peace. Now, just thinking about the condition that right now minorities are in, immigrants are in, all different nationalities that are not predominantly white in this society, they face some form of discrimination. And I think now we are looking to politics to solve those problems, but we know in the Quran it says Allah will change your condition when you change your condition. When you begin to change your condition, then he will help you. There's an instance when he said, indeed Allah will help those who help him. And it doesn't mean help him and aid him in some way, but if you follow his laws and what he wants you to do, then that will lead you on a path of righteousness. I often see these documentaries. I saw a documentary called The 13th, which was talking about the prison system and how it is today basically a modern day slavery. I saw another documentary on Mahatma 21. It's talking about abortions and how they are so prevalent today. And all these other documentaries that are talking about the plight of minorities, the plight of black people, the plight of Muslims, not the plight of Muslims, but the plight of people that are affecting people negatively. And I thought to myself, we are in a position to avoid those things if we only follow and practice what Allah tells us to do. And that's what I think he means when he says, indeed, Allah will help you if you help him. If you follow the laws that he gives you, most of these traps that people have given to us, we will avoid automatically. But there are other conditions, obviously things that happen to us as a whole, that we look at society and think, how can we rectify these things? How can we resolve them? And the Quran says, or do they think that they will enter heaven with such trial without reaching such trials? But they were touched by poverty. They were talking about other messengers who were touched by poverty and hardships, even to ask, when will the help of Allah come? So it's not only just regular Muslims, but the messengers themselves were in such turmoil that they were asking for, when is Allah going to help them? But when it says unquestionably, the help of Allah is near. So if we stay steadfast, we pray, we do what is right, and we are righteous people, then we will avoid many hardships and the other things Allah will come to our aid for. Now, just in terms of politics, I think today that we should have maybe a short-term solutions and long-term solutions. I was reading a book on Kwame Ture, and he was talking about organization. Kwame Ture is Stokely Carmichael. He changed his name to Kwame Ture. and he was talking about organization, and that was his main principle to getting anything resolved. And I thought to myself, what things organizes people the most? What can galvanize people the most but religion? And our religion is something obvious that it galvanizes us Muslims. Excuse me, but not everybody has al-Islam. So I think just in terms of politics now, maybe the short-term solution would be to vote for the candidate that you think would best resolve the issues and concerns that you have. But the other thing that affects is our midterm elections and activism. Not necessarily being in the system, but being outside of the system and organizing to resolve issues that are dealing with society. So we have to organize, obviously, with Muslims and with non-Muslims to help build our communities. I think those are the things that we should focus on throughout these 4 years, because I think we wait until the 4 years and then we look at the candidate and we hope that they will do what's right for us. When in reality, money and power is what moves people, moves laws. We don't have the money, but we do have the power. We have the numbers or the ability to gain numbers to move people to do what is right. But we wait and we hope that this person is like a savior. I don't know if that is something that is innate in us or something that we've always looked for as someone to come and solve the problems for us when Allah says we can change our own condition. If we start to change, then Allah will aid us in change. But not only that, we should be able to receive help from other people. Allah says, and what is the matter with you that you don't fight in the cause of Allah and for the oppressed among men, women, and children who say, our Lord, take us out of this city of oppressive people and appoint for us yourself a protector and appoint for us yourself a helper. I think other nations who are in a position to help should help, and other Muslims particularly. And if we are enabled and we have the ability to help, we should help. I mean, just the idea, I like that translation, like, what is the matter with you that you don't help? I mean, you see somebody in a position that you can help, you should be able to help. And I love that translation of it. It's probably even better in the Arabic language. I was also looking at this documentary that was talking about the 7 nations that the U.S. is bombing right now. And they are Yemen, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya, and Pakistan. What is the common denominator between all 7 of those? I mean, it was amazing to me that is the case. I mean, I also was reading this article that it was entitled, Why the West is Terrified of Muslims Reading Their History. Now, in this article, it says that around the Ottoman Empire, or after the Ottoman Empire, there was a separation when Muslims were, instead of being seen as one, we were started seeing ourselves in terms of nationality, saying, oh, I'm a Palestinian, or I'm a Pakistani, or I'm Iraqi, or whatever, instead of just seeing us all as one community, as Muslims, and that was the way in which they were able to divide us. But if we all see ourselves as Muslims, we all see ourselves as on the path to Allah, whether you are the most learned Muslim or the least learned Muslim, you are still a Muslim. And I know some people see themselves as, I know more Islam than someone else. But if you do, you have the obligation to teach them, to get them to the level that you're on. You shouldn't be look down upon them. You should look at them as an opportunity, because Allah has given us every day is an opportunity. When we wake up, that's what it is. Allah gives you another opportunity to be better than you were the day before. I just see our foreign policy as a whole, America's foreign policy as a whole, is something that is not a coincidence that the 7 nations that we are bombing currently right now are all Muslim nations. But if we can galvanize ourselves and we can get the American society to see that the reason that we are fighting them is for causes that it has nothing to do with al-Islam. It has to do with selfishness and greed, and not to do with they hate us for our freedom. I mean, if you come to my house and start shooting up my house, if you shoot me, my kid's gonna hate you forever, just automatically, So what we do and how we treat other people is the reason that we have these conflicts in other nations. We decide to colonialism is still going on. I don't know if people realize that. I know when I read history books, when I was in history class, I used to think about colonialism, and I would think about that's something that happened in the past. It's not happening currently. But history is being made today. Yesterday is history, and 100 years from now, they'll be saying, why were we bombing these 7 nations? What is the common denominator between those two? And instead of asking how did this happen, ask why did this happen? We have military bases in these countries. We have puppet leadership in these countries. We have involved ourselves in their economics, in their government, and then we wonder why they don't like us. Muslims as a whole, I think, should just be able to, once we are involved in the community and we're involved in business life, we are able to cause an influence on everything else in the community and in politics. We should be more involved in politics. We should be more involved in society as a whole, and that way we can influence people to see the problem that America is having on the world. And I think that's all I have for mine. That was my 2 cents for today. All right. Any questions? All right.
I'm just here to answer any questions that you all might have. They don't have to be related to the subject that Ismael brought up today. So any questions?
Are you familiar with the Arabic that he used when he said, what is the matter with you that you don't help get? I'm going to look it up, but are you familiar with the Arabic?
Yeah, Muhammad, can you quote that exact phrase? I'm familiar with it,
right,
but not being able to quote it right off the top of my head, but I'm definitely familiar with it. And the other one that Ismael was alluding to, the other ayat, Allah will never change the condition of a people until they first seek to change what is burdened in their souls. So the soul of the human being solicits and to us, or requisitions, I should say, from us, a response that it is being burdened, the soul is being burdened, and the soul requisitions from us relief from the burden that it is experiencing. And if we respond to that burden, that request coming from the soul to relieve the burden, then Allah will change our condition. So some of the translations say, and in bad translations say, Allah will never change the condition until you change it yourself. So if you can change it yourself, you don't need Allah to help you. So, did you find it, Muhammad? Still looking? I'm still looking, okay. Yeah, so, but I do want to just add to what Ismael said about, the need for us to vote. It is important that we do vote, and you vote for whom you want to vote for. I'm not in a position, as I said in Jummah, not this Friday, but I think the previous Friday, previous week, or the previous Sunday, it may have been, I don't know, but a week prior. We're not, as religious nonprofit organizations that we are, we have been granted that status. It's a violation for us to tell the members of our congregation who to vote for. And I don't want to do that anyway. I prefer that we vote our conscience. We vote for the candidate, and I said it also this way. The Imam Muhammad, sometimes we have a tendency to say, vote for the lesser of the two evils. Imam Muhammad never used that expression. He said you take the better until you can get the best. You take the better until you can get the best. You accept the better until you can get the best. So that should be our spirit. Because we have people who say, well, I'm not going to vote for either one. I'm not going to vote for neither candidate, because this one is short in this area, that one is short in this area. I don't like this one for that reason. I don't like that one for this reason. So you take the better till you can get the best. You found it?
Yeah, it's chapter 5, Surah An-Nisa, ayah 75. وما لكم لا تقاتلون في سبيل الله والمستضعفين من الرجال والنساء والولدان الذين يقولون ربنا أخرجنا من هذه القرية الظالم أهلها واجعل لنا من لدنك وليا واجعل لنا من لدنك نصيرا.
Is that what you want to use?
What's the Arabic for what's the matter with them?
وما لكم.
Yeah. What? Ma, what? Wama, and what? And ma, wa, and ma, what? Lakum, what is the matter with them?
Right.
It's plural. Kum. Yeah.
So that's, okay. Did that give more clarity to it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Y'all can have comments too, you know, it doesn't have to be questions. You got comments, something you want to say about current events, or anything that might be on your mind or heart to say.
I need to write down questions throughout the week, bring them with me.
Yeah.
You played with questions that you wanted to ask, bring them with you.
Yeah, you can send them email, you can text me, send me a text message or whatever, we can address them. Sometimes what is on one person's mind is something that another person may want to ask, you know?
I had a question. It came up on social media the other day about women modeling or wearing makeup. What is your take on that?
Yeah, well, we had a collective buying program once, and I said we, meaning those who were associates of Imam W.D. Muhammad's leadership. And we had representatives who traveled to China. In fact, one is still doing that, Imam Yahya Abdullah from Jacksonville, Florida. He was in Dallas, but he's in Jacksonville now, Jacksonville, Florida. He still travels to China right now, buying products, clothing, mainly clothing items for men and women. But he was also going to Dubai and a few other places, and even places in the United States. The collective buying program. So as a result, when it came to promoting these products, these clothing items, they would have fashion shows. And I recall Imam Muhammad bringing to our attention that the danger in it is that when the woman is modeling, you're not just buying the product, you're buying the woman too. In other words, the suggestion, because the woman is modeling the clothes. Same thing as for men, but you know, it probably would be, the effect is probably greater on men with a female model, you know, going across the stage, you know, and the way that models are taught to walk. My nephew was a model. He went to modeling school for a while. And he was demonstrating to me how they teach you. They teach you to walk a certain way. Your ankles and your heels, your feet, your toes, and you know, the way your body moves, the way the way you walk, it makes your body move a certain way. So you're selling the, not just the product, but you're selling the person, the image that is carrying the product. So generally, if there's a bottom line is that what he suggested is that if they were going to be models, that the women would have women models, and clothes would be presented to women by women. And then same thing for men, that the men would have clothes presented to them by men. Now when it comes to makeup and things like that, I know that much of what we have is from madhabs or schools of thought from the past, or from, I would say, conclusions that men, not just men, but Muslims have reached or drawn from what has been given to us from the past. And when I say from, I'm not talking about the Quran, you know, I'm talking about from rulings and decisions that have been made from previous madhabs. That's mainly what I'm talking about. So, you know, there was a time in the history of Muslims when the women used to wear veils on their ankles. And they would do that to draw attention to the men. So those things were because of what it was used for. And they would come to prayer like that. It was forbidden. So there are certain things that are used by women more so, but men too, to a degree, that are used as distractions. And I'm specifically talking more about when we come to prayer than I am when we're not in prayer. That will take the mind off of the mind of the opposite sex, off of what our mind should be on. And I think to the degree that it does that, we have to really show restraint. Now, does it mean that the person is going to, excuse my expression, but go to hell or be condemned to hell because of those things? I don't think so. You know, so I know that the positions on this, again, will vary from place to place, from let's just from one school of thought to another school of thought, or from one scholar to another scholar. But generally, that would be my position on that.
It's a comment, you know, the thing with it seems more like a separation, you know, the women and, you know, the women and men. That's like, I guess, one of the biggest things that I saw. I don't want to say, but I guess we want to say miss, which probably ain't a good word as far as like being in the church.
Mm-hmm.
How, you know, the women and it's more of them, you know, and it's not like you're like a big lusting, but like you were saying that when you went to, you know, to the Hajj, because your mind went on that, you know, but then it's at the same time it seems like it's just a real extreme separatism, you know, like that, you know, and I know it helps out, and definitely in prayer, you know, definitely when it's time for prayer time, but you know, I guess just, you know, I know you didn't say it was a personal thing, but it just seems kind of extreme, and I know some of it's culture too, you know, but it seems kind of extreme, you know, don't
Okay,
shake the hands.
I'm trying to get your question. That's what I'm trying to get.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. That was
Yeah.
just a comment.
Yeah.
It seemed real extreme to me. That's all.
Okay, I think I know what you're asking, or I think I know what you're suggesting, that the separation of the sexes is a little extreme to you. Is that what you're saying? Okay, so where we have to accept that the way we conduct ourselves, and I'm going to talk about two situations, mainly in the masjid and then outside of the masjid. We have to respect what Muhammad the Prophet, prayers and peace be on him, taught us. And that is that we do separate the men and the women. Commingling, too much commingling of the males and the females, and I'm talking about commingling to the point where we are pressing flesh, can take the mind off of what the mind should be on. Whenever we come to the masjid, particularly in the masjid, but that's not to say not outside the masjid too, but more particularly and more pronounced, or more of a conscious way, our minds have to do when we come to the masjid. So there has to be a separation of the sexes, the male and the female, because too much commingling can easily take the mind off of what our minds should be on, and that is prayer and worship to Allah, and obedience to Muhammad the Prophet, prayers and peace be on him. So I know in the church they don't have that, and I believe personally, because I grew up in the church as a child. I grew up in the church. I know church life. I know church behavior. I know church thinking. And I know the problems that exist in the church. Not to say we don't have problems in the masjid, because we have problems in the masjid too. But I think that environment helps to minimize, environment can help to either minimize the problems that I'm talking about, or it can help to give fuel to it. And if you have too much commingling of the sexes, it gives fuel to the ease of crossing the line and then committing sins, acts that violate our ethical codes of behavior that are given to us in the Quran and taught to us by Muhammad the Prophet, praise and peace be on him. So that's necessary. And it may be viewed as extreme. And now, not to say that there are places, there are cultures, and there are people who don't take it to extreme. You know, I'm not saying that that's not the case either, because there are cultures and there are people that take it to extreme. For example, the veils. You know, the veiling is not Islamic, and if people will research it, they'll find that it didn't come from Islam. Veiling really has to do with a secrecy, a society of secrecy, and it meant more so than veiling the woman, because of what the woman symbolizes. It meant veiling the knowledge. It meant hiding the knowledge. But in certain cultures, men in those cultures sometimes demand that the women veil themselves. Now, there's a teaching about Muhammad the Prophet, prayers and peace be on him. He said a woman can be married for 4 reasons: her status, her beauty, her faith, and what's the other one?
Well,
Her wealth, right. And he said, of those 4, he said, the major one is for her faith. But he did mention beauty, for example. Beauty. He mentioned wealth, status, beauty, and faith. Faith is the major one. So when a man is pursuing for marriage a woman, to marry a woman, the major thing he should be considering is the faith of that woman. But beauty also is one of those that is allowed. So when the woman is veiled, you don't know what you're getting. You don't know what you're looking at. You don't have an idea. You have nothing to judge. Now, I'm going to tell you how much I know this is the truth. My wife and I were in Richmond, Virginia, back some years ago. And it was a sister that we both knew. And she had a veil on. And she was working in a restaurant that was owned by Muslims. So we went there to get something to eat. And the sister was telling my wife, "Oh, you don't know me now." And my wife was like, "No, I don't know you, because I can't see you. I don't even, you know." And she kept saying, "Oh, you act like you don't know me now." And my wife wasn't trying to be funny. She said, "No, I don't know you, because I can't see you. I don't know who you are." And then she finally had to tell her. She had to tell my wife who she was. So I'm saying now, and obviously there's nothing there sexually, but it's the fact that I can't even identify you, despite me knowing you very well in the past. But I can't even identify you because you're so covered. And so there are many who will think that to do this, and if people are left to their belief, if they want to believe that, they want to accept that, they want to do that, that's their business. But I'm saying emphatically, and from a historical standpoint, and it can be proven, that that is not Islamic. Veiling did not come from al-Islam. Many women in many cultures will do that. So I'm not saying that they're not those who would take separating the sexes to an extreme, because there are cultures that do it, there are Muslims that do it, and extremism, one thing we know about extremism is the way of the shaitan, the devil. The Quran tells us that. You go to any extreme right or extreme left, extremism is the way of the shaitan, the way of the devil. So I don't know if I've answered your question, Kenny, but I haven't said all of that I say, but I still have to go back to this, that there has to be separation of the sexes, particularly when we're in the masjid. Now there are people that we in many masjids, particularly smaller communities like we have right here, we know each other. Many of us know each other, and we know each other like family members, like Yusuf's children and my children. They grew up together. And his children are like my nieces, and I'm sure my children are like the same to him. And there are others in this community that I've been knowing their children ever since they were babies. Kasif al-Mu'adhin. I remember when he was a baby, I held him in my arms when he was a baby. Now he stands on top of me like a tree.
That's right.
But I'm just saying it's like family. And for example, Korea is their mother, Korea. The daughter was in Baltimore recently looking for, it's a long story, but bottom line is that she was there and she was in a very precarious situation and she needed somewhere to stay. She didn't have anywhere to stay. But foremost was on her mind. She went there, she moved there from St. Louis and went to Baltimore for a job, and she needed somewhere to stay. And because of her faith was moving her, she wanted to go to the masjid first. Before she found somewhere to stay, she wanted to find the masjid. So she went to the masjid. She didn't know, she just knew, she found out it was a masjid, a certain place, and she went there. And when she went there, and after Jummah, one of the brothers told the imam, there's a sister here, there's a young sister here that she needs to see you. She really needs to talk to you. So she met the imam, and she told the imam that she said, I'm just moving here from St. Louis, and I have a job that I'm supposed to start soon, but I'm in need of somewhere to stay. And he said to her, you know, well, who are you? He asked a few questions, and when she mentioned my name, she said, my imam, she said, even though I moved from St. Louis, my imam is Imam Fareed in Norfolk, Virginia. And he said, no worries. Right then, he was like, it's done. And he called me. He called me, he called me, and I was out, my wife and I were out. And he said, I got somebody here that want to talk to you. He said, she said that she's just like your daughter. And he put her on the phone, and I found out it was her. And I told him, I said, she is, just like a daughter of mine. And he said, you know, he told me, he said, when she mentioned your name, he said, that's all it took. He said, I didn't need to know anything else. He said, we got her. Don't worry about her. We got her. And her mother was so happy. And her mother called me and she, thank you, Imam Fareed, for looking out for my daughter. Well, I really didn't do anything. It's just that the relationship that I have with a number of people around the country, that if my name is mentioned and somebody is in need of some help or something like that, my name is mentioned, they know me, they're gonna get the help. And the praise belongs to Allah, But I said all that to say that she's another one. She's just like a daughter. She's like a daughter because I've been knowing her since she was a baby. And so we have, I said all that to say to your point, Kenny, trying to answer your question, that there are some of us, because of relationships that we have, we're just like family. We're just like family. That if I was to hug, for example, one of these children that I've been knowing since they were children, there's nothing to it. There's nothing sexual about it. And now somebody else might not have, they don't have that kind of relationship and closeness. And they wouldn't, the child wouldn't even allow them to do that. So I'm saying that to not recognize that there are situations like that also can be extreme. So again, I hope I've answered the question. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that some people, like some women don't give the salam, so I don't give it to them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I feel bad whenever I do it, though, just because I feel like sometimes it seems like if I offer salams, sometimes I offer them salams and then I feel like maybe they think I'm trying to come on to them or something. I just see them as a Muslim. I'm actually excited when I see another Muslim anywhere. So I'm just saying I'm a Muslim too, but I feel sometimes I don't even say anything.
Yeah.
I feel like I should. I feel it's bad.
Well, I think that what you're feeling is right in that there's a greater blessing of the one who gives the greeting first. And we also know that there's teaching that tells us that when a greeting is given to us, we return a greeting that's equal or better. So if you encounter a person, and we know there's also teaching of Muhammad the Prophet, prayers and peace be on him, he said, well, the one that's riding greets the one that's walking, and the one that's walking greets the one that's sitting. So there's protocol in terms of how we give the greeting and to whom we give the greeting to, in what order the greeting. But because there's a greater blessing in the person that gives the greeting first. And then to make my point, I was talking to a brother that I know, brother from Pakistan, friend of mine. He's still in the area, and he was telling me how we were having a discussion about greetings, and he was telling me, he said we always rush to try to give the greeting first, and because of this teaching I'm talking about by the Prophet, that the one that gives the greeting first gets the greater blessing. So what I do, and I'm very familiar with people that you're talking about, the kind of mentality, we got them right here in this area. If you're not of their school of thought, they don't like giving the greetings to you. In fact, they brand some of us as not being authentic enough as Muslims to even give the greeting to us. So they group us along with the Kafirs. So what I do for people like that, when I see them, I encounter them, if I walk into a store and they're there and they're close by, I will just say, Assalamu alaikum, keep moving. Now, whether they return the greeting or not, that's on them. But I would give them the greeting, I would say, Assalamu alaikum, and I will keep moving. The burden is on them. The burden is on them to give a greeting. And that teaching, it doesn't say to a Muslim or non-Muslim. It don't say when you give the greeting to a non-Muslim or when a greeting is given to you from a Muslim or non-Muslim. It doesn't say. It doesn't specify that it has to be Muslim or non-Muslim. So when a greeting is given to you, you return a greeting that is equal or better. So, even in American culture, in this culture that we live in America, I recall growing up as a child and even as an adult, but particularly when I go back to the days when I was a child, when society was more decent than it is now. People had a lot more respect for each other than they do now. And to greet somebody, because sometimes to greet somebody in this culture is like, you asking for trouble. I mean, really, you could literally be shot sometimes. I mean, some people are just that extreme. Or if you just look at a person with a kind expression on your face, what are you looking at me for? And they're ready to fight. I don't mean you no harm. I'm just, it's a nice day. Maybe my expression on my face is just reflecting that it's a nice day. So they will, but to give a greeting, they will say, good morning. Some of the people say, good morning. Sabah al-khair, right? Sabah al-khair in Arabic. Good morning. Good morning to you, sir. Good morning to you, ma'am. And how are you doing? So some people that just instinctively, they will go beyond returning the greeting. They would say, good morning to you. And I hope you have a nice day. Okay, so that's a better greeting. I mean, they've gone above what they returned the greeting of good morning, but they went on to say, and I hope you have a nice day. Enjoy your day, or something like that. So people do that in this culture. They don't know the teaching of Islam, but people do that, the nature of human beings. So we say, Assalamu alaikum. You say, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. You've extended the greeting, May the peace and the mercy of God be on you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace, mercy, and blessings of God be on you. A greater blessing. I mean, a greater greeting. Greater greeting. So, Ishmael, to your question, when I meet, and I know a few of them, quite a few of them. I know the mentality. I know the school of thought they come from. They don't really see us as Muslims. They think that they group us with Kafirs, like they do. They group us right along with Kafirs, and for that reason, they say that they are not to give us the greeting. They're not obligated to give us the greeting, so they don't give us the greeting. So what I do, I give them the greeting, and I keep moving. Whether they return it or not, I don't even stay there to even hear if they return it. I just give them a greeting. In other words, don't let what they do make us less obligated to what we are to do.
That's
Yeah.
all.
Wait, Islam.
I have a confession to make. One time we had this conversation about, how it was just making me mad the way that you speak to people, of another color, and they don't speak back or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember how adamant I was, and how I'm not going to speak no more, based on what you said, coming from the Quran, I've changed the way I do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because my commitment is to Allah more so than what I'm thinking about with them. So
Yeah.
I get the blessing by initiating the speak. If they don't speak,
Yeah.
I just calm my nerves down.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, based on what you say, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Based on what you say. Because I have read it in Quran, but it just didn't touch me like that.
Yeah.
And now I'm seeing you still saying the same thing when he said it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that's my confession.
Well, alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
I've changed it.
Yeah, Kenny, what's it?
Yes, sir. I wanted to ask, I know, remember, hearing about, the devil being, charge of the airways,
Mhm.
and so I can't help but see the difference with, like, sometimes wonder, well, things are changing. Is it the work of the devil? Because I remember, like, and I just keep thinking, because, like, now when I speak to people, women especially, with no harm intended, to get their the eyes rolled or whatever, or not speak at all or whatever, and I just can't help but think, I'm like, man, I didn't have this problem in high school, like back in the 70s or whatnot, and I didn't have this like in the 80s, maybe a tad bit in the 90s, so it's like, for me personally, it seems like I'm seeing a progression of it getting worse.
Mhm.
So, of course, by coming here to the masjid here, you hear about the devil being in charge of the airwaves, I'm thinking it is more of a society thing, especially with the internet, where we're losing communication. People don't know how to speak. Everything is fast.
Mhm.
Talking to somebody, no disrespect intended to smaller or younger people. I'm talking to them. Everything is fast. Go to order something. It's like, hurry, may I help you? It's like, man, okay, hold on, give me some time to me think. Or just even to get a reply back.
Mhm.
It's real fast. I gotta ask her, excuse me, can you say that again, kind of slow? Because everything is just fast. So I'm seeing if it's so I guess my question is, am I right looking? Do I got the right perception of this? Is this like getting worse than it was? Worse as time going on, like the one like saying that I
Yeah.
didn't see that in the study.
Yeah, well, the scripture now, the scripture I'm talking about now is not the Quran. It's the Bible scripture. But nevertheless, it's correct in what it says. That this time that we're living in now is the best of times and it's the worst of times. It's the best of times and it's the worst of times. So, it is the best of times for the righteous. It is the worst of times for the wicked. So, they're going to be, as the culture gets darker and darker and worse, there will be some in the culture, or I should say really, outside of that culture, who will be getting better and better. The light will be getting brighter and brighter. So there are two forces working, the forces of evil and the forces of righteousness. And for the forces of righteousness, those who have given themselves to righteousness, we will serve, I say we, because Muslims should be that force, at least in the forefront. We should be what the Quran calls their sabiqun, those that are foremost, those that are out front, those that are taking the lead. in projecting to the world an image of what is right and what is sane, what is righteous, what is proper conduct and proper behavior. So as we do this, the world is giving themselves to darkness, they continue to get worse and worse unless they adhere to the light, unless they come away from that thinking, that mindset, that way of life, and they come over. But if they continue to stay where they are, Satan is going to offer them nothing, no help, and continue to lead them down the path. And at the end of the day, he's going to do what Allah says he will do in the Quran. He'll say, I didn't make you follow me. He said, I just called you. I just called you and you came. So you don't hold me responsible. He said, blame me not. In the translation say, blame me not. Do not blame me for your hardship, for the situation you're in, for being condemned, by God. I just called you and you came. You gave yourself to my appeal. You responded to my appeal. So yes, you're right in your perception that that's what's happening. But again, we just like this so-called LBGT stuff, where you got even religious leaders saying it's okay, and they are voting for it, and they are advocating for it, for this group of lesbians, gays, and transsexuals and all this to have certain rights. They're advocating for this. Well, we can't do that. As Muslims, we can't do that. I don't care how much the culture advocates for that, and how many prominent people that we have in society who advocate for that. We can't advocate for that. We can't condone it. So there have to be always a people serving as a model. And for some people, they have to do what we know is this. It's to hit rock bottom. It's to hit rock bottom, to come around and come away from that and come to the light. They have to go as low as they can go. And the errors of the ways of society will soon be seen. That once, and it's another strategy. I'm going to say this and I'll be through answering your question. There are people in politics, some, I would say, well-intended people, who will sometimes utilize a principle that says this: okay, I'm supposed to be leading you. I'm your representative in Congress, and I'm supposed to be leading you and doing what is in your best interest. But you are insisting that I take this position. So, okay, I'm going to take the position that you want me to take, despite me wanting to take another position. So I'm going to take this position, and I'm going to let you see the errors of your ways. Down the road, you're going to see the results, the consequences of this decision. Now, what I just described to you, that's real. I can go into it a lot more depth. I can show it to you in what they call it, mythology. I can show it to you in mythology. That this is a scheme that have been used for thousands of years by certain people in leadership positions, where they will allow you to do that. They will allow you to. They will allow you to. They will take a position that you want them to take, to show you the errors of your ways and the consequences of this down the road. And so there are some who are doing that. And so they say, now you see? Now you see? That's like I'm pointing out about this LBGT. See, people are going to see. Like, I was in the mall yesterday. I hate to be so long-winded when answering questions, but I was in the mall yesterday, and I went to a restroom in one of the department stores. And I came out, and the thought just hit me. I said, now, I just came out of a men's restroom. Now, and the thought hit me, the women's restroom was right across the hall. Suppose a man like me, I saw a man like me coming out of that women's restroom. And I'm just thinking, I'm saying, how would it impact on me? But then, and I'm thinking out loud to myself. And I'm saying, but now there's a push in society to do just that, to make it legal for a man like me to go into a women's restroom. All I have to do is say,
That's how I'm feeling right now.
that's how I'm feeling right now. That's my agenda right now. You know? And then I'm thinking further. I'm saying that my wife goes in that restroom. My daughter goes in that restroom. My niece brother, goes in that restroom. Women go in that restroom. So how crazy is it? How insane is it that there are people who will promote the passing of a law that will allow a man like me to go into a women's restroom to take care of his needs? And it's possible that that's not even what he's in there for. But even if he's in there for that, I don't want him in there with my wife. I don't want him in there with my daughter, or my niece, or my aunt, or my mother. So, you're seeing it right. All we have to do is keep being the example. And Allah says, Kuntum khayra ummatan ukhrijat linnas. You are the best people, or the better people, evolved for the good of mankind. Evolved, or brought out, evolved from, ukhrijat means really to be brought out, to evolve from, for the benefit of the people, all mankind, the people. And so we have to be that light for them.
Yes, sir. I just want to say I appreciate you telling me that about the devil, you know, because that's what it boiled down to. Because it's hard. It's hard for me to I don't say like be a model when like, because sometimes you feeling like, man, I just need to put my shades on so the women can see me, so they won't get upset if I make a mistake and glance at them just for a second, you know. And when I glance at them, poof, you know, just have the eyes meet. My eyes meet with a guy, don't mean I want them. So they just glance at the next thing you know, they're rolling their eyes. I'm like, man, I've never seen it a day in my life where she rolling her eyes at me, you know. I'm thinking, man, you know, just put my shades on when you have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you telling me that. That's what I should do, is to be a model because of, you know, the saints.
Yeah, I'm doing. Yeah.
They have this saying, like memes or something that's on social media. It says it's gotten so bad now that good manners are confused with flirtation.
Yeah.
Like holding the door for somebody or saying hello to them.
Yeah.
Men and women are taking it from the opposite sex as being flirtatious with when you just.
So
nice.
what does that go back to? It goes back to the Quran. And the Quran says that's what Satan will do. He said he will make wrong seem right and right seem wrong.
That's what it says. Yeah.
That's the Quran. So what we are witnessing in this society we're living in, this modern day society in the world, the Quran has already told us what to expect. It's told us what they look for. The Quran Allah has already told us in the Quran what we're gonna see, what we're gonna witness, how it's gonna go down, and at the end, who's gonna be victorious. So that's the good part about it. Allah has told us at the end who's gonna be victorious. I want to be on the side of those who are going to be victorious. To be victorious, we got to be righteous, we got to be good, we got to be believers, we got to hold on to the faith, we got to work for good, and etc. Yeah. So anyway, thank you all for your time. Peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum.